Okay, so step one, you have gotten your kit, and what is the first thing that you do to start constructing it? This is going to be a series of videos, hopefully designed to help you guys put these things together. I will say ahead of time that this is how I do it. Many of you already have experience doing this, and if you come up with your own creative ideas on how to do it, then it'd be awesome to hear, like, if there's easier ways to do things. But again, this is how I do it. I don't profess to be the guru of this, but I've done this a lot, and I've designed some stuff and methods that I think work, and they work for me. Okay, so first thing I did, I pulled it out of the box, and I grabbed a Sharpie, and I did a cut, or I drew a line here. You can see this black line kind of going all the way around, and I'm basically going to cut off that flashing that is on the underskull. And then after I do that, I'm going to do it in this sandblasting cabinet over here, just because I have that. You can do it outside. I'm going to use just probably a little tiny cutting wheel, like that thing right there, in a Dremel, and it should take just a few minutes to cut it off, and then I will show you the finished product. Okay, so I just pulled the skin off of it. Definitely just be careful when you pull the skin off. You don't want to stretch it too much, because there are spots in it where it gets pretty thin, like around the eyes and stuff. You don't want to tear it. And then I cut off the flashing. So that's step one. You can see that black line is no longer there anymore. I just cut along it. Now I'm going to probably be going back and trimming more off of this edge in a bit. It's just kind of the first step in getting this thing prepped. You can see, like, there's a little bit of a lip here on this edge where my smaller pinky finger is. And on the other side as well. I'll probably be trimming that back a little bit more because it doesn't really need to cover that much of my face. Essentially, I'll be trying this on throughout the build, and it'll be, adjusted and hopefully, accustomed to my face. So I may not need it to go back this far. But that is step one, to just sort of cut the flashing off. And I'll have step two posted here, hopefully not too far from now. Okay. Thanks. Next step in the process is I'm going to basically clean this entire skull up, both inside and outside, with this little sanding wheel. You can use sandpaper for this. You could use orbital sander. You could use whatever sanding device you have. You obviously don't want to sand it so much that you're sanding through any fiberglass, but there's lots of little burrs and stuff on it. I'm going to sand those off and get this whole thing smooth to the point where, one, the skin will easily stick to it. It'll be roughed up enough for the skin to be glued down to it. And then two, on the inside, and I'll actually probably sand the inside a little bit later after I cut the jaw off. So for right now, I'm going to just sand the outside of this underskull with this sanding wheel. It'll take a little while. I want to make sure I get it nice and smooth, but I don't want to dig into it so much that I'm losing any of its form or anything like that. So I'll show you guys the finished product here after I'm done with it. So it took me about 15 minutes or so, but I used that sanding wheel to sand this down smooth. You can kind of see what it looks like, but I sanded the entire thing. What that's going to do is make it so that the face skin will stick to it, because it'll be all roughed up smooth. It'll cut off any burrs. And then also, when you get to gluing hair on the back of the dome where the hair is getting glued directly to the fiberglass, it'll make it so that it adheres and is on there for good. You can see I didn't miss a spot right there. Try to make sure that you get the entire thing sanded. So before I move on to the next step, I'll probably go back in or use some sandpaper to just go in and go over any of those little spots that I might have missed. And there's a fair amount of dust on there too. Keep in mind, this is fiberglass, so you want to do it in a safe space and not be breathing in fiberglass. I think that covers it for that step. The next step will be I'll put the face skin back on this, and then I will cut out the excess silicone around the eyes, nose, and mouth. And then I will trace the holes on the underskull, nose, and mouth, and then I will cut those out. I'll show you all that stuff again in the next video. What I've done here is I have cut out the eyes, or the excess silicone around the eyes, nose, and mouth, and basically I just took a Sharpie and traced so that I have sort of a guide of knowing whereabouts I need to cut when I start cutting out the eyes and nose, which is what I will do next. And I think that is it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut those out, and then I'm gonna cut about a 1/4 inch back. So I'm gonna peel this back here, and you can see where I've traced. My Sharpie, of course, was dying when I did this. But I'm gonna actually extend this line up about a 1/4 inch to, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch maybe, wider, a bigger oval than what it is right now. I'll show you guys that in the next video. Okay, so I've got a couple things to talk about here. So getting ready to carve the nose out and the skull. So what I did was I traced the eye holes with the skin on top, which I should have shown in the last video. And then what I did was I extended those lines out from the eyes about 3/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/4 inch. Those, I just know those are going to be comfortable on me. Ultimately, what you want to do is you want to carve out the eyes, and then you want to kind of try it on and make a judgment about what's the most comfortable cut for you in terms of how wide the eye sockets are. But really, that's sort of a custom decision, individual decision that you make for yourself based on the fit, depending on the shape of your face. The nose doesn't make contact with your face, so it really, you just want to kind of leave a bridge in the middle. It's a little bit messy with the pen, but you can see the darker lines there. It's sort of a piece of a pie-shaped cut out there for the nose. You certainly could cut back a little bit more, but that's typically how I do it. You don't want to cut too high vertically, yeah, especially if you're going to do a lip mechanism, depending on the lip mechanism that you're using. And then you'll also notice that I cut, I wanted this edge over here to be straight, and I still may end up cutting out down here on the bottom so that it doesn't jab back into my neck or my Adam's apple. But you can see I'm just straightening up this edge here, cutting off that outer lip again. I know I already cut the flashing off. I probably could have just done it all at once, but what I like to do before I draw lines is I like to hold it and kind of look at it from a distance to see that my line is straight. And I did the same thing with the back because I want that to be a straight or more straight edge back there. All of that gets covered in hair, so it's kind of my OCD just sort of kicking in, but it's something to look at, something to consider when you're making your kit. So what I've got here is I've cut out the eyes with a little Dremel bit. I'll show you the little sanding drum. Basically use this right here. Basically just kind of start in the middle and work my way out when it comes to the eyes. So start in here, and then I just kind of circle around and work my way out. And I basically just cut to that outside line that I had done. If you remember, I traced the inside eyes with the silicone on, and then I extended it out about 3/8 of an inch or so, 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, and then did the Dremel, and then I did the same thing here. Now I got to be careful of this middle bridge here. I like that support there. I don't know that it even really matters, but I just like having it. And I just basically rounded off the corners a little bit with that same sanding drum. So basically just did one of those things in each nostril. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab some sandpaper, and I'm going to basically just, these edges are pretty frayed and have a lot of like sharpness to them. So what I'm going to do is just kind of sand it down, smooth out those eye sockets, and then I will move to the next step. Okay, I thought I'd just do a quick video of myself sanding the inner part of the eye socket here. Doesn't take very long. Just basically rolling that paper up like so, and then just basically so it's really important that you get the eyes cleared of all the burrs, because your eyes are going to be, the eye socket's going to be the most sensitive part of your face. And you know, you don't want something poking you through the eye, but you don't even want it poking you around the eye. So I can get a close up there. You can basically get the idea, but and I would basically do the same thing. You can see how they're much more uniform already. But I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to do the same thing, same technique there with the nostrils, and then I will move on to the next step. Basically what you're going to do at this point is you're going to clean up, probably vacuum off all the dust and everything after you get this cleaned up, and you're going to put it on your face and hold it as close to your eyes as possible. And you're going to kind of get a sense for if you need to widen those eye sockets out at all. You may or may not need to do that depending on your face and how well it fits you. I've kind of gotten a sense, because I've done so many of these, for what works for me. So I'm guessing that this will work for me. But you know, you might need them, you might want them a little smaller, or you might want them a little bigger. Depending on, you know, how it fits your face and how much vision you have. But the idea is you want to be able to put that silicone mask over this, and you want the silicone touching near your eyes so you can get your eyes as close to the mask as possible. You don't want to be touching your eye socket to fiberglass. They are going to be felt lined, so you won't have your eyes touching fiberglass anyway, but you just want it to be comfortable, especially around your eyes. So just keep some of that stuff into consideration as you build your kit. All right, and so I've got those shaved up pretty good. I have not put this on my face yet, but I'll get to that probably tomorrow. But I put the skin back on here so you can see, get that in camera. So you can see, you know, obviously there's holes now where the eyes and the nose are supposed to be, depending on how much of the fiberglass is visible underneath the bridge of the nose. I don't know, I think that's called a bridge, but anyway, you can kind of see there, I think you can see this little bridge area right there. You can kind of see how much of that is exposed. If you need to cut it back, narrow it a little bit, or sand it with sandpaper, you can obviously do that. Right now, mine looks pretty good. As you get your mask closer to finish, what you'll do is you'll paint that black just so that it kind of blends in with everything else. As people look through the nostrils, you don't want them looking through the nostrils and seeing a white fiberglass bridge there. So in case you're wondering about that. Otherwise, that's kind of the first phase of getting the mask prepared. Now, I haven't cut the mouth yet. Tomorrow, I'm going to work on cutting the mouth and doing the jaw. Now, that part is probably the most tricky part. Getting the teeth in and everything is probably the most tricky part of building this kit. I think any kit, for that matter. Well, I guess I'll only speak for myself, but so I'll make sure to have as detailed a video as I can on that, explaining how I go about doing it, and hopefully it will help you out a lot. The next step in the process of building this Tarfful mask kit is to install the hinges. I like these hinges. I find them on Amazon. I will try to find the link for them. Now the catch with them is that they do not come with this little hole here. I have that drilled out, and I'm not including these with the kit because other people like to use different hinges, and I think there's so many different options out there. You can see what you like best. I use these, and I install them at this point in the kit building process before I've made the cut for the jaw. Now to start the process, you can see that this dotted line here is basically where my jaw cut will be for the most part. Now it's only going to be till about this spot here because this upper portion here will hold a hinge, and then the hinge will extend down, and then there will be sort of an open space where the actual hinge piece is, and then I will extend that cut down here to the mouth. And I want to install both hinges and then have them all screwed in, and then I put these little pins, little cotter pins, through that hole in the hinge. That's just how I do it. There are other hinges, like I said, and other methods for doing that, but I wanted to share that with you just so you have some idea of what you're up against there. So I'll install the hinges, and then I will screw them in. I like to use some glue as well. I use this zip kicker glue, and I'll show you what I do with that, but basically I just, in addition to screwing the hinges on, I'll just glue basically when they're on there, I'll just glue all the way around the edge, and then I also put a little drop of glue in where I put the screw, just to keep it so that make it so it is never ever going to break off or anything like that. It's probably overkill. That's kind of how I operate. It seems like I always like to just go the extra mile there with the glue and just extra security for in case something drops or something like that. But that's essentially it. I'm going to go ahead and do all of those things. And I'll do another video essentially re-walking through all of what I had just talked about, except you'll be able to see what I did. Okay, so I forgot to talk about one thing in my last video. So first thing I got to do is I got to figure out where these hinges are going to be. What I like to do is I like to use this top portion with the ball on it that I put the cotter pin through, and I like to set it in the spot where I'm going to want it to be. You can see it there. And then I'll mark 3 holes for where I need to drill the hole. Essentially, I'm just gonna put a dot there in each of those holes so that when I take it off, I know where I'm supposed to drill. And there's a little bit of room for error. The hole is pretty big. I'll do the same thing for the bottom hinge. I'll do the same thing for the bottom hinge here. And then I will see if I can just do it during the video. Hopefully you guys can see that. But basically, I just line it up, and then I will put some drill hole dots in there, and then I'll take it off. And then what I want is I'm going to have to cut out basically an area. There needs to be an area for this hinge ball to sit. So I'm going to be cutting this spot out right here. We'll see if I can show you with the so I'm going to be cutting out this space right here so that that ball portion has somewhere to sit. So again, I'm going to drill holes here. I'm not going to cut this out. Very important. Do not cut this area out. I'm going to cut this area out that I've scribbled black on, and then I'm going to drill 3 holes here. And then I'll extend the cut down and through the mouth, through the bottom of the mouth, more than likely. So this will be freely hinged at that point. But very important, again, do not cut this upper portion because you need it to hold on to that upper half of the hinge. I think that about covers it. I'll go ahead and do those steps, and then I'll come back and we'll go through it. Okay, so I talked in the last video about cutting out this space here. Again, extremely important. Do not cut this area here. It needs to hold the hinge. It holds that down. I haven't drilled the holes yet for the hinge, but that will be my next step. But essentially what I did was I cut out this area here. You can see this area. And that way it allows the hinge to kind of sit in that open spaced area, if that makes sense. See if I can hold it with my other hand so you can see it better. But this is essentially how I am installing my hinges. This lower hinge will of course sit over the top of that one. And you can see that there's sort of a space between the lower hinge and where the jaw will sit. So part of what we're going to do is we're going to have to bend the hinges a little bit more than likely. But the other thing is that as I was cutting out these gaps here, what I did was I extended my cut. As I was cutting out these little gaps right here, I extended my cut down about, I don't know, halfway to 3/4 of the jaw. I didn't extend it to the front of the mouth or anything like that. I just took it down to here. And the reason I did that is because it allows this jaw to flex, and it makes it easier for the hinge to be installed. So a combination of the flex of the jaw and actually bending the metal, which I'll probably go over in a later video, in order to get the jaw and the hinges to work in tandem so that the jaw and the teeth line up correctly. So the next step is to install the hinge, drill 3 holes, and then I'll glue the hinge on. And then after I get the hinges on, and I'll go over this in another video, after I get the hinges on, then what I'll do is I'll make the cut so that the jaw is completely freely hinged and free moving. And then I will work on installing the teeth. But for now, I'm just going to work on installing the hinges, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I went ahead and I drilled my holes for each of the 6, I guess, I don't know, 3 per top and bottom. But so I'm going to go ahead and install the first one here. And basically it is just, hopefully you can see that. Basically I'm just putting the screw in, and I just twist it to get it started to hold in, and do that with probably all 3 of them just to kind of hold it in place. If I were to jostle this, it would fall out. But basically do that. So I get it all set up like so. So it's held there, and then I'm basically just going to give it a couple of turns. I'm not going to screw it all the way in yet, because what I'm going to do, if you can see that, is I'm going to put a drop of glue down there right as I screw in the final couple turns. And then I'll put some zip kicker on it to really seal it. See if I can get the cap off here. And so what I do is I take a drop of glue and I just plop it in there, and then I go ahead and tighten it down. And so you can see that one is that end one there. If I can get the right angle, that end one is done. So I'm going to plop glue in these other 2. I really like this Zap-A-Gap glue. I use it for everything. I know it's popular amongst all the costumers and stuff, people that build stormtroopers and stuff and other costumes. Anyway, so they're all screwed in there now. And then what I'll do is I'll just hit it with a little bit of zip kicker. And then I'll also, I will glue the edge of it. I usually don't do this step until the very end, until I get all the hinges on both sides, and then I will glue. But that is essentially what I do. I'll hit it again with the zip kicker just because that's what I usually do. So I usually screw it in, glue it down, screw it in, glue it down, and then same thing on the other side. Now, if you notice, obviously there's sharp edges sticking out here on the inside. What I do is I just grab my Dremel and a little grinding wheel, and I just cut those off. And then I'll probably go over this again in a future video. I keep saying that. After I cut them off, what I do is I'll sand, and then I will glue with the same type of glue just on top of that. I'll put a drop or two on each sort of stump, if you will, to, obviously you don't want those jabbing into your face. So anyway, that's the process for putting the hinges on. I'm sure there'll be overlap probably between another video and this one, but that's okay. Hopefully you're taking notes. All right, so I've got the hinges glued on. You can see the cotter pin sticking through that middle ball point. You can see there's an angle right now, especially on that bottom piece of the hinge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the bottom of that and make it so that it's more contoured and I don't know, so that it works that hinge a little bit. But I'm just going to bend that bottom portion of it. And I really have to do this on both sides, but I'm basically just going to put a pliers here, and just bend it in, push the end of that hinge in. Okay. You can kind of see the inside here. Obviously, don't want to put my face in that right now. In another angle there, you see the bad angle on the hinge, but you can bend it and it'll work fine. One of the reasons why I'm more than likely not going to include these hinges in this kit is because other people have other hinges that they like better. They're super easy to find, and I just think, I don't know, I've liked these because they're heavy duty and they work for me, but really any hinge system I think can work there. That's just what I use. You can see I glued each edge of each hinge, and I also put some glue, as I showed in the last video, in for each screw. So that's basically that. Next step is to bend those hinges to get them lined up better, and then I will cut off the sharp stuff sticking through and then glue that, and then I'll probably make another video. So in my last video I was saying that I was going to bend next. I'm not going to bend next. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my cut around the jaw so that this thing can be freely hinged. So I'm just going to basically, I've ended my cut here. I'm going to just extend it around this bottom line here to where the teeth will be, and then all the way over to this other line there. So this jaw section will be completely just only attached by these hinges. And then what I'll do is I'll be able to take off the jaw and get a better angle on bending these. And so the next step will be to cut, and then I'll work on bending, and then it will also make it easier to cut off the sharps. So the next step will be to cut, bend, and then I'll saw off the sharp screws. Okay, so I did one of those steps, and then basically I just finished that cut line there. Obviously that will all need to be cleaned up and everything. But that's essentially its free hinge. Now this jaw is really stiff right now. The reason why is because I still need to bend these hinges. It's just really not, it's rubbing really loosely. Normally I can, mess around like this and it looks like a, silly skeleton from Halloween. But because those hinges still need to be bent, it's just, there's too much pressure on the hinge and needs to do it. But you can get an idea here. It's freely hinged. if I wanted to, I could force it and take it completely off of the hinges like this right now. The reason why I put those hinges on beforehand is so that it would be lined up perfectly with the mouth. So that objective is achieved. The next step, like I mentioned in the last video, is to cut off the sharp things so I don't keep grabbing them because they hurt, and then to bend these hinges. And then I'll come back with another video that shows this guy with a much more fluid jaw. Okay, so basically working on, I just finished cutting off the sharp areas. I just used a little cutting blade on my Dremel. It took just a couple minutes to do that. And then basically what I want to do is bend just the end of this so that it angles in better and has a smoother flow there with the jaw. So what I want to make sure to do is I don't want to just grab this on the end here. I don't want to just grab that on the end and just bend it because it might put some tension and try to pull these screws out because I haven't glued them yet in from this other side. Because what I'm going to do is put some dabs of glue there. But before I do that, I'm just going to, it doesn't matter that I do this step first, but I'm going to just angle in each side of this to see if I get a free-flowing jaw. And then if for some reason it doesn't work the first time, I just bend it a little more. These hinges are pretty resilient, so basically just, you know, trial and error, I guess. So I'm going to do that, and then I will see if it gets free-flowing. And I can tell already it's going to be a lot better. So we'll get less dust everywhere. Anyway, so that's much more free-flowing. One of the things I'm looking for is I need to kind of bring in, you can see this, it's sticking out a little bit. So what I need to do is maybe tweak the metal a little bit more just to get it so that it's more flush. All of that's going to be under silicone anyway, so I'm not really worried about it. The biggest, most important thing is I want my jaw lined up. If I, for some reason, have bent it too much on one side or the other side, then maybe my jaw would be like off. You can kind of see it's ever so slightly there, but it's lined up pretty well. It's within a millimeter, and so I think it'll be good. I probably will bend it. My OCD will kick in and I'll bend it just a little bit more on both sides, and this is an acceptable one. On this side it's for the most part flush. The hinge is pushing it out just a little tiny bit. That's not going to be a problem. The other side over here, it's a little bit further out than I want. I want to push this in a little bit, so what I'm gonna have to do is probably bend this hinge piece that's on the bottom to bring it in. But anyway, the jaw is on. At this point, it really feels like I'm getting somewhere with this kit build. The teeth will come next, and they can be tricky. So probably call it a night and start up again tomorrow. Thanks. So the next part of this build for Tarfful is to get the teeth cleaned up. So the teeth are going to come to you and they'll look something like this. There's a little bit of extra stuff here on the bottom. What I want to do is basically just use some sandpaper, or I have a flat sander. Basically what I'm going to do is just flatten out the top, and I'm going to cut off any of this stuff that's kind of on the top of where the gums are, and clean them up. I'll do another video to kind of show you what the finish is. Okay, so we're talking teeth now. Now what I've done is I've gone in and I've cleaned up some of the flashing and the excess stuff off of those top teeth. You can see the bottoms I haven't worked on yet. You can see how the difference between them. This is how they will come to you, as I mentioned in the last video. These I've cleaned up, and I just use some sandpaper. Usually I put it on my belt sander because it just goes faster, but anyway, it's a slow day here, so I just used some, I think it was 150 grit sandpaper, and I just worked on it for about 20 minutes. As the garage door closes, I'll pause for a moment so you can hear me. So, so basically, the teeth is a little bit tricky, so it's going to be important that you watch these videos and really kind of understand what's happening here. So what I did was I took the face skin and I put it back on the underskull, which I've put the hinges on, and I've cut out the eyes in previous videos and the nostrils. You'll notice that when you look at the mouth that I haven't cut away. All I did was do that one cut line through the bottom line of the mouth, and the skin is slipping off here, but you can see that the cut line goes through just above this bottom lip, and so there's this excess fiberglass right here that would need to get cut out for the mouth. Now the teeth they have a certain vertical dimension to them, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to cut up a ways, because the teeth in all actuality are going to be glued into this underskull somewhere about up in here, so that when they hang down, you're seeing the appropriate look in terms of how much of the teeth you're going to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a process of cutting away some of this material, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test fit. I'm going to I'll hold the teeth in there, and then I'll put the mask on over the top with the teeth under there, and I'm just going to see how it looks. And there's really an eye test here that you need to kind of go through, because at the end of the day, it just needs to look good to the eye, to the naked eye. And I'm going to have more videos explaining what I'm talking about, but that's what we're going to be doing. Is we're going to be cutting away some of the material here and sort of working our way up. The first thing I did, and I'll pull the face skin off of this so you can see, the first thing I did was, see if I can do this with one hand, was I just held these teeth up to this so I could see how wide of a shape I'm going to need to cut. And I've got some lines there that you can see. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting out, probably from up here up to the top of this square to start, and then I'm going to cut all the way across, meeting up just above the top of this mouth line, all the way over to this area here. And so it's going to cut out that shape there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the teeth in there with the mask on top, and then if I need to cut out more, I'll kind of go through that same process again. But hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so what I did was, just so that you guys can have a better visual of it, is I went ahead and I shaded in that area that I'm going to be cutting out. I recommend getting a Sharpie and just kind of sketching out what you're going to be cutting. Now, I may end up cutting more material off of this. Again, what I'm going to be doing to get those top teeth in is I'm going to cut out some material, and then I'm going to take a look at how that would look with the face skin on top of them, because I want to make sure that I don't cut out too much material, then the teeth set too far up under that lip. I also don't want to cut, it's got to be just right, because I want the right amount of those teeth showing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and then we'll take a look at what it is. I usually end up doing 2 cuts, sometimes 3, most of the time 2, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of use some sandpaper to just kind of get myself that last little bit that I need. You don't want to cut too much, because then the teeth will be up too far. You don't want to cut too little, because then the teeth, then he's showing all of his gums or something like that. So there's kind of a fine line there. And this is really the tricky part, is figuring out, how far those teeth need to be up into that, and how much material to cut away. Okay, so what I did was I cut out that space that I had shaded. You can kind of see how that's cut out. It's important to note that I took the jaw off of the hinges to do that. So I just had this in my sandblasting cabinet, and I just cut it out just with the half one. It gets kind of wonky with this flopping around all the time, especially if you've already bent the hinges, and if it's loose and free flowing hinged. So anyway, so what I'm left with is this here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those teeth that I showed you in the last video, and I'm just going to kind of hold them in place in that space there. You can see they have a really good fit in terms of the arc. What I need to do is, you can see that gap right here. So what I'm going to do is, some of these other areas, like I'll have to shave this back a little bit with the sandpaper, and the same thing over here in order to get that to meet up. It's okay if there's some gap, but you want to have enough touching in the front and the sides to glue it down. And then what we do is we take in and we can fill in any remaining gaps, which I'll show you in a later video. But anyway, let's see if I can get the right, kind of an awkward angle here. But right now I'm just trying to see that I have the teeth about where I want them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm holding them here. You can see I'm just holding them with my thumb, and I've got my fingers wrapped around there. But this is sort of the awkward process. And I'm gonna put the face skin over the top, and then let's see what it looks like. See if I need to cut more material or if it's where I want it to be. I recommend having reference photos on hand for this too. That's a big part of, getting these teeth set the right way, is just whatever you want it to look like. So this is going to be a good example here, because you're going to see that I'm going to need to cut more material. So that bottom lip is lined up with exactly, and you can see he's got way too much of his gums showing. It's hard to give you a great angle because it's not glued in there. But what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting it to look more like that, okay? Except the face skin isn't on there all the way. When the face skin is on where it's supposed to be, then he's got way too much showing. So what I need to do is I need to cut almost a 1/4 inch more out of that same space. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut about another 1/4 inch out of there and see what it looks like. I may end up having to do a third cut on that. We'll see. I don't wanna cut off too much though, because then I run the risk of, having to go in and rebuild back something, and that's a whole nother process. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to cut too far. I want to kind of just slowly work my way to the look that I want. But I'm going to go through this process of cutting a little bit out, fitting them on there, and you can tack them with glue if you really want. If you think you're getting close, I would tack them down with just a dot of glue or something, and then really take a look at where that skin is sitting over the teeth. And I'm going to kind of just keep repeating that process until I get the teeth exactly where I want them when the skin is over the top of them. So that's it. So I'm going to go through that process again, and then maybe I'll be where I need to be. So I went ahead and I just traced another rough 1/4 inch that I'm going to cut out. You can kind of see, again, I always like using a Sharpie just to be sure. Trying to maintain as straight a line as I can, and again I like to step back and look at it just to see if it's what I want. You can see as I'm going up, I'm getting close to the nostrils, and they're male. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to go up a little more even after this. This being the first Tarfful underscore that I've done, so I'm still kind of learning, and I've got the new teeth and everything. The other thing I can do that I haven't mentioned is if for some reason I need to get a little bit of room, but I don't want to cut away at my underskull, is I can always just shave back and shave down on my gums a little bit to make them less vertically tall. I try not to do that. I don't know why. You certainly can. I think I don't want to, I don't want to eat away too much at my gums, because if I decide that I want to do a lip curl mechanism in this, then I want that lip to be able to lift up, and I want there to be gums underneath it. I don't want the lip to lift and then find out that I'm looking at underskull when it lifts up. So those are some things to consider there. For right now, I'm just working on the underskull. I feel totally comfortable because this is pretty thick. You can see how thick the fiberglass is there. And so I'm not worried about it not being rigid enough or whatever. I mean, it's thick. It's easily probably close to a 1/4 inch thickness right there on that upper lip. So I'm going to cut this out, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut out a little bit more material. You can see, maybe, I don't know if you can tell or not, but the space is just a little bit bigger. It's not completely straight too. Again, I'll use sandpaper to kind of make that straight. Kind of a funny look right now with the open mouth. I don't know, I always like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get the teeth in there, and then throw the mask on top and get a sense for if I need to cut more. That space under the nose is definitely, that upper lip space of the underskull is definitely getting, it's definitely starting to get lesser and lesser. I could cut even more. I'm guessing that I'm pretty close where I'm at right now. what I'll do, well, let's just take a look with the skin on there. When I put the skin on there, I want to have the lower jaw attached, and that's going to be important to holding that skin on there right, so that you are getting the look that you want. And it does look like I'm going to need to cut a little bit more. I'm definitely getting close though. I think if I do another cut like I just did, about, you know, I don't know, I guess it's about 1/8 of an inch maybe. I think I need to take another 1/8 of an inch off. Anyway, see if I can get, it's hard to hold it up because the skin wants to fall off of there. But you can see, I'm getting closer. I want that lip to come down about to there. Now Tarfful does show more of his teeth than Chewy does, but I don't know. For me, it looks weird when he's showing too much teeth, and definitely don't want any gums showing. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And I'm going to take another 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch off, and try again. So round 3 of getting the teeth set in there. Okay, so I'm getting ready to round 3. Drew out another line, and I'm going to basically just cut up. After this, I don't know if I want to cut up anymore. So what I may end up having to do is shave away some from the top here, which will get them to set further up. But I'll go through that if I end up having to do that. We'll see what happens after I do round 3 of cutting the upper teeth spot for the under. Okay, so I've got round 3 cut now. I'm gonna try those teeth in there. After this, I think I'm gonna be cutting away at the teeth because I don't know, this space right here is just getting too small. And so what I wanna do is just chip away at the top of these teeth, which I didn't really take much off of them. I maybe should have taken more off of these to begin with. I'm still totally fine, but at this point, I think what I'll do is I'll shave some off the top of the teeth before I cut more off of this. It's really thick fiberglass, so I'm not worried about it. It can stay structurally sound. Even this bridge in the middle is super hard on the nose, so I'm not really worried about that. Maybe it's just the look of it. But what I'm gonna do is fit these teeth in and take a look at where I'm at. I'm hoping that I'm good or really close to good. I might be able to get where I need to get with just sandpaper at this point. We'll see. Okay, so I'm looking at the teeth. I'm seeing that they're centered where I want them to be. Ultimately, where that mask sits is going to be important in terms of centering the teeth and stuff. Okay, I'm in really good shape. I think I may leave them the way that is. I may just do a little bit of sanding with the paper, but I don't think I'm gonna have to take much off of the teeth, if any at all, off the top of the gums. So let's see if I can show it to you. So I'm in really good shape. None of the gums are showing, just the teeth. There's maybe just a little bit of more teeth showing than I want, but I'm gonna be able to shore that up with by just sanding down that edge that I just cut with my wheel. I'll give you a better look at that. So I'm going to use some sandpaper. So I've got a little gap here in the front, and that's created because I need to sand a little bit away from this area here, which is holding those down. So if let me get the Sharpie and I will show you. So what I'm going to do is, let me get the different angle here. So gap in the middle. So what I'm going to do is sand away this area about right there. And looks like about right there. And maybe a little bit further. And what that's going to do is eliminate most of that gap in the front, because I just got a couple of low spots there because I didn't cut it in a completely straight line. Anyway, looking really good. I'm really happy with this so far. And to me, that's about the perfect amount of space there, from the bottom of the bridge to the top of the gums. Let's see if I have a measuring tape that I can show you. Let's see, looks like it's about, it's right at 1/2 of an inch between the very bottom of that nose bridge and the top of the gums. So just for reference. Now yours might be a little bit different. Each one's kind of custom made depending on your face and stuff. So, but it's roughly going to be about 1/2 an inch that you're going to have some sort of a line. So what I would do is I would start a little before that and then kind of shave back until desired effect. So I've just got my sandpaper. I think this is 150. It doesn't say. I think it's 150. Anyway, I I marked those lines in those areas that were the low spots. And I'm just gonna spend some time basically just sanding that back. I'll probably sand it back close to so that my black line is almost gone. And then I'll just refit those teeth and see how it works. So of course I'm sanding here and not on camera. But again, I'm just gonna sand back on those spots right there. Same thing over here. And I think I'm gonna be good to go after that. It's gonna be perfect. Okay, so I ended up taking about 1/8 of an inch or so off of the top of the teeth. Maybe not quite, maybe 1/16. But I did end up taking a little bit off the top of the teeth. And you can kind of see, so I gotta keep on going the wrong way. And you can see, I'm kind of holding the mask on so that it sits flush. But that is essentially like where I'm at right now. And I'm happy with that. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna glue the teeth in place like that. Now, before I glue the teeth in place, just because it's much easier to get in the little nooks and crannies, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna shave out with that little sanding bit. I'm gonna use this right here to clean out the inside of the mask, the same way that I did the outside of the mask in one of those early stage steps. But I've got the upper teeth in a spot where I like them. And with the mask over the top of them, I like the look that's gonna get. Before I glue them in though, I'm gonna shave out the inside and then I'll be able to glue the upper teeth in, and then I can start working on the bottom teeth. Okay, so I went ahead and I cleaned out the inside of these, in the inside of the underskull with that little sanding wheel. And it's all nice and smooth. Really take the time to do that. I'll show you a look at mine here in a second, but and then I've got the teeth back on there. You can see, personally I like that's where those are at. So I'm going to glue them in now since I have the inside of the underskull sanded out. I just want to make sure that I have them lined up and so that they're looking good with the skin over the top. And what I will do is basically just hold them in place with hold the teeth in place with my thumb and get that skin situated correctly. And then I'll take the skin off and I'll just tack them in place. The top of the mask is wanting to flop down on top of it, but I just kind of, when I hold it down, so I can give it a better angle. When I hold it down like this, I can get a better look at, if the mask is on there correctly. Because if your mask isn't on there correctly, then, you might be looking at teeth that are in the wrong spot. So for right now, I'm super happy with where that's at. And I'm just going to hold it there. I'm going to take this mask off. And I'm going to move these teeth forward just ever so. And then, of course, they just went out of place. So now I have to kind of go back and do it again. I'm kind of glad it did that, actually, because that's probably likely to happen. And so you might have other methods for doing this, especially if you've built other kits before. So there we go, I'm good. What I'm looking for here is I'm looking to see that the middle part of the upper lip where the groove is lined up with the groove of my two front teeth. And they are basically exactly lined up perfectly. So again, I'm just kind of pinching with my thumb and my hand. And I'm gonna pull the mask off. And then I'm going to grab some of my CA glue, and I want to just tack this in place. if I can get the cap off. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to tack this in place. And so what I've got here is I'm just going to put a little drop of glue there, and a drop there, and maybe a drop in front. And then I'm going to just zip kick it. All right. Maybe overdid it on the zip kicker. Anyway, so the teeth are in place. Of course, I'm crappy at the video portion of this. Anyway, so there's the teeth in place. And now, since I don't have to hold the teeth in place and I just tacked them, I can put the mask back on and really just see if I've got it right. And if I have it wrong, then it's nice because I just tacked them there and I can just pull them off, shave off the tack spots, and then do it. And as it is, it's looking pretty darn good. So if you want to show more or less teeth, you know, you would just, you know, do that process. Now I'm going to go through the same process with the lower teeth. I'm going to have to shave some away to make room for them. And I'll make sure to make video of that as I go through that process. But that's the top teeth. I think that's probably about the trickiest part of this kit construction. So once you've completed that part of it, there's reason to feel like you're really getting somewhere. I guess along with the hinges too, I always feel like I'm getting somewhere when I get it hinged and when I get these top teeth in. Now, one thing I am going to do too, and I'll probably mention this again, is I've got a little bit of an overhang here. You can see I drew a black line on each side here where the teeth are kind of sticking out more, and it's just a little bit of a sharp edge. Now, the teeth are designed to fit in that form of Tarfful's face. So I don't want to shave that back a ton, but I also don't want this edge right here. So what I'm going to do is just round that edge off, and I'm going to leave it. It'll stay. I should say it'll stay sticking out the way it is, but I don't want that sharp edge because it just kind of makes the shape of his face look a little bit different. And so what I'm going to do is just shave that down a little bit. I'm just going to run a piece of sandpaper just like that, right over that edge right there. And then I'll probably start on the bottom teeth. All right, so I went over those two edges and just rounded them off. I don't know how well you can see that, but I just rounded off just in this little spot right here. I just kind of ran a piece of sandpaper for a minute or two and just rounded that off. And so when I put the skin back on, I don't get a sharp sort of more of an edge there. And it just sort of works in line with how Tarfful's mouth is supposed to look. So now it is time to do a couple things. One, I'm going to start working on the bottom teeth. And then once the bottom teeth are in, then I'm going to do like a much more secure glue for both the top and the bottom teeth, which I'll cover that later on. But for right now, bottom teeth. Right now I just have the top teeth tacked in, so I've got to figure out how much room I need to cut out for those bottoms, and then we'll move on to the next. Okay, so with the bottom teeth, there's never a risk of the lip will be glued down, and there's never really a risk of getting to see Tarfful's lower gums, and so that lip is going to cover much of these teeth. Probably just the tips will be sticking out. I'll make sure, and I would recommend going and looking at reference photos of Tarfful to try and get an idea of what look you're going for, whether you want to show more teeth or less teeth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a lot of this flashing and this extra material off the bottom with my belt sander. You can just use regular sandpaper for that. It'll probably just take longer. And I'm going to clean these teeth up in much the same way that I did the tops. And I'm going to make this so that I don't have to cut much off of the bottom jaw, because I'm really going to shorten these teeth out because the lip's never going to move on the bottoms. So all of this material is going to be completely hidden. So I'm going to really shave these down quite a bit before I start fitting them into the mask. So I will show you after I've got these whittled down. I'll give you another quick video to show you what they look like before I start fitting them. Okay, so I'm whittling these teeth down here a little bit. I got them a little bit crooked on top. It's a little higher over on this side than it is over here, so I need to kind of whittle away at them. But you can see I really cut quite a bit of material off the bottom, again, because none of that's going to be visible down there, as it'll be hidden under the lip. One of the things I can't remember if I mentioned in the last video is that as I'm cleaning these up, I'm making sure to sand this area right here on both the top and the bottom teeth. The reason for that is because the palette, which I don't even have, as I'm making this video, I don't even have the new Tarfful palette done for this kit, so I'll be getting that done soon. But that palette, this is a old Chewy palette, is going to adhere with Silpoxy to that space right there, and so you want to sand that down and remove that glossy sheen that that the resin cast gets. You don't want to remove that on the teeth, but you want to clean them up and remove that on any of the areas that you're going to be gluing. So this top shelf needs to be sanded down very well, which I'm doing with my belt sander and just a piece of sandpaper. And then also do that to the inside area here. Make sure it's sanded down nice and smooth and roughed up pretty good so that the glue and the silicone can adhere using Silpoxy. Okay, so I've just cleaned up those teeth a little bit. They might need a little bit more cleanup. And I'm basically just trying them in there. This is the first test fit. And so I've got the top teeth tacked in. The bottom teeth look pretty well lined up with the tops. They can be tweaked, you know, one way or that way to try and get a good clean fit. And it looks like I'll have to shave some of this edge down here just to smooth it out, and that's fine. That shouldn't take very long at all. The jaw, if you notice, when I take the teeth out, the jaw comes completely closed. When I put the teeth in, you can see that now there's an opening here on this side, and that's an indication of how much material I'm going to need to cut down inside of this here in order to get these teeth to fit the way that I want them to fit. If I were to put the mask on right now on top of this, or the face skin rather, if I were to put the face skin on top of this, then too much of these bottom teeth would be showing, and I want them to be hidden with under that lip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to basically draw, I'm guessing that's about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm probably going to need to come down about 1/4 of an inch in this space. Let's see if I can kind of map that out while I have it on the video. But it's going to be something about like this. And again, I'm going to go through this process of shaving it back a little bit at a time. I don't want to I don't want to go too far. And we'll see what happens. So you can kind of see that line that I'm drawing there. I'll finish going around here. I'm not in a great position, so I can't do it on the video, but I'm going to do that, and then I'll test fit again. Okay, and so I've gone ahead and I just pulled the jaw apart, and so I could finish that line. It's not completely straight, but again, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to sand it down. I'll probably fix it with the pen a little bit, try to get a little bit straighter than it is. But you get the idea, same process for that lower set of teeth as it was for the uppers in a lot of ways. Hopefully not gonna have to cut away as much just because it takes longer, but doesn't matter. There's still plenty of material in order to go down if I need to cut down further. And I've got the teeth mostly cleaned up. So basically, if I've got the teeth on there, you can kind of see what I'm looking at there. There and there. And I've got a gap going. Again, I'll work that gap down with the sandpaper. There is going to be some gap more than likely, unless you just put in a ton of time and effort. That gap will get filled in with glue later on, and I'll show you that in a step upcoming, which I've mentioned that at least once already. Okay, so I went ahead and fit the lower teeth in, so you can see that I've got a pretty clean. There's a little bit of a gap here. It's not going to even be noticeable, but I basically just tacked those lower set of teeth in, and they're free hinging. And then once I get them where I want, I basically just cut down, like I said in the last video, it's maybe 1/4 inch. And then I basically tacked them, so I've got uppers and lowers tacked in, and go ahead and just give you a look at what it is, what it looks like. We'll probably just angle the camera down so you can, that skin keeps wanting to fall off. But there's Tarfful with his teeth in. So there is some play with the skin, even when you glue the skin. You want to try and just get it right without having to do it. That way there's no stress on the skin. But that's it. Teeth are in and lined up pretty good. You have a little bit of play with the skin in terms of positioning, and then you also have play in terms of the jaw, right and left, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the next step in the process, I'm gonna cut the rest of this jawline and taper it. So I'll give you an example here. What I'm gonna do, basically just from the top of where this jaw piece is, I'm gonna taper it up into where the hinge is. I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom, just slowly getting closer to that jaw. So it's like that. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. They don't need to be exact, but you know, I like them being. Take a look back at it. That's pretty good. Same thing down here. I don't know if you have to do this. I've always just done it because it's less material that's touching my face when I'm in there. There will be felt lined on all these edges anyway, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so I'm gonna cut those off, basically right there. I'm gonna cut these off, and then I'll sand them down. Get rid of any burrs. Same thing on the other side. We'll probably cut this little corner off here too, just to keep and this over here, and this one over here, just so they're not sharp stuff. Same thing over here. And just cut those off. So that'll be the next step, and then I will come back and we'll work on gluing the teeth in with the secure glue. I will go over that in the next video. For now, I'm just gonna make some cuts. All right, so I went ahead and made those cuts there. They still need to be cleaned up and smoothed out. Same thing here, 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 here. I was just cutting off some of those sharp corners and then cutting basically out the cheek. Later on, we'll put in some little hooks or something, little wall mount hangers that I use, and putting a rubber band in there to give this, to make this so that it will close, have some reflex to it. We'll get to that a little bit later. One other fairly important cut that I might make is this area here, and I mentioned it in an earlier video. This part here has a tendency to dig back into your neck if you don't cut it out, but really it has to be custom for each person's face and neck and stuff. So what I'll do is I'll try this on and I'll figure out, oh, maybe it's cutting me, maybe it's cutting out or cutting into me rather, maybe that much. So I may have to cut off, that much. And what I'll do is I'll create a curve like so, and I'll look at it a little more in depth later and make sure it's uniform, but I'll cut that out, and I'm going to do that just depending on where it fits me best. So that's another thing. I may do the same with the back here too. I think I should be able to get my head in this fine, but in the past, depending on the size of the person's head, I've done the same kind of idea with this back of the dome here, just to make it easier to get on. You want it to be a snug fit, but obviously you don't want it to be painful or uncomfortable when you're putting it on. The other thing too is I made the back of this with a little bit less fiberglass, so it has some give, so that you can pinch it together and get yourself a little bit more room. You can kind of see it flexing there a little bit. The rest of the mask is made with a little thicker fiberglass. This stuff in the back was made to be kind of a flexible fit. All right. Okay, the next step in the process, as I mentioned in the last video, was to smooth out these edges. I could smooth this one out a little more. You can see there's a little divot there. That side's really the only one. This one's pretty good. Again, those are going to get covered in felt, so that all gets hidden anyway. So this is probably good on this side, but I may go back in and just clean up. There's some little mini burrs there that aren't gonna become a problem or anything like that. And then, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do some glue work, because right now these teeth are just basically tacked in, and you can sort of see there's a couple of little spaces in here. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to use the CA glue to sort of build, to pack that hole and fill it in. And I'll do that all the way around. You can see this whole area. I'm just gonna put a line of glue and then zip kick it. And basically I just wanna make it so that when I backfill this with the glue that I use, it's not gonna leak out any of these little holes here that where the teeth don't exactly align with the jaw plate. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. See if I can point the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm basically just, it's kind of just like I'm tacking, except maybe along, doing a line rather than tacking. And so I'm just filling in those gaps so that glue doesn't leak out. Looks like that's about it. Maybe right here. And then I'll do the same thing with the top. And then I'm going to show you the kind of glue that I use. So the top really doesn't have any significant gaps, but just to be safe, I'm going to seal it off just so nothing leaks through. So as I'm looking at the top, I'm not seeing anything. There was a little bit of a gap here in the very front. I mean, like a 32nd of an inch or something. And just to keep glue from leaking through there when I do the backfill of it, I filled it in just in case. And if you look in through the back there, you can see that you can't see any light shining through that other side. In effect, those are glued in CA, and I don't know if anything could ever knock them loose as it is, but I like doing the whole extra glue thing just to make certain. So what I do is I use, if I can get it off the rack here. What I do is I use plastic bonder, mix it up in a little tiny tray, and then I basically just sort of spoon it in with one of these, and I just sort of fill in that area. And so one of the reasons why we sanded the top shelf on the teeth, or the bottom shelf on the bottom set of teeth, was so that this glue right here would adhere from the fiberglass to the resin teeth. And it's just extra security. If you've never used this stuff before, it's amazing. It's amazingly strong. It's sandable, it's flexible, it's expensive. It's like $5 or $6 for a tube. Occasionally you get them for $4.50 or something on Amazon, which is what I usually do. I'll just buy like 10 of them or something. But I really like this glue. I'm certain that there's other comparable glues out there. So what I'm going to do is basically mix a little bit of it up, and then I'm going to basically just scoop some of it out, and then I'm just going to work it into the seam on top of this shelf. And I'm not going to use a lot. I'm going to use like I don't know, maybe like an ounce, maybe a ½ ounce of it, and just sort of fill in that seam there on both the top and the bottom jaw. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you guys the video of what it looks like afterwards. All right, so it's a 2-part glue, and I've just got this little tiny tray here, just mixing it up. I had a little bit left over from an older tube, and so right now this is like maybe 1/4 of a tube that I have in here. It does harden pretty quick. It's a 15-minute wait time on this. I know you can find stuff that's more or less, but see if you can see here. I'm basically just working it into the seam. It'll flow a little bit, but it is pretty thick. And it's very, very strong. You do not want to get this on your skin. I don't think it's like toxic or anything. It's just ridiculously sticky. Like, it takes like a week to come off. So I think I'm gonna be good here with just like 1/4 tube of this stuff, because they're already glued in so well that this is just like extra security. See if I can give you I don't know if you guys can see that at all. I'll show you afterwards what I've done, but I think the top is pretty good. I'll go on the bottom. I might be able to give you a better view of the bottom. So I'm gonna go and grab some more of this glue. You can see I have plenty left. So 1/4 tube is plenty good enough. And then basically just sort of drip it into that bottom cavity that's sort of hidden there. And I'm just making sure that it's sort of mashed between, you can sort of see right there. I'm just kind of working it into that seam. Got a little bit of glue left in the little tray, so I'll use that. I can already feel it. It's already starting to harden up, which is fine. You get 5-10 minutes of work time out of it. Anyway, this is sort of one of these products. I use this a lot on Phasma. It's obviously a plastic bonder. I just use it for extra security. I just loved using it with Phasma. It was just so strong and it's sandable. So that's basically what I'm looking at here. When I set it, I'm going to set it down on the table like this so that sort of gravity kind of helps it flow into the into that seam down there. But these teeth are never coming out after this. I mean, you'd have to saw them out to get them out of here between the CA glue and the plastic bonder that I just used. They aren't going anywhere. So it's super durable. Anyway, so I'm gonna set that down. I'm gonna do the same thing with my upper half. I'll set it so that that glue is kind of working into the seam just with gravity, even though it's already almost set up. But that is that part. So I haven't let the glue dry yet. If you're using that kind of glue or glue that's similar, I highly recommend just waiting until it's dry. I'm just gonna be careful, basically, not touch it, because I don't want to get it in my hands. Like I said, it takes days and days to come off, it seems like. But this is where we stand. We got the teeth in, which is without a doubt the most tricky part of this build. Cheek cut out. And really we're kind of down the home stretch in terms of building the kit. What I've got to do is I got to put the pins in. I got to add some little hooks here and here on the inside, and then attach a rubber band, which will have that jaw have some retention to get to close back up. And so that's what I'm going to do next. To mark where I want to put those little hooks, what I do is just mark a little X, essentially, and I like to put them right behind where the teeth are at. and try to keep them away. Like if you have any facial hair and you have your head in the mask, you want to try to keep the rubber band maybe from grabbing the hair. I've never had a problem, but it's just sort of a thought, I guess, because it's like, where do I put them? So anyway, where I marked these X's is where I'm gonna glue some little hooks on the inside, and the hooks will be facing upward, opposite each other, so that you can hook a rubber band in. Some of you have probably seen pictures of the inside of my masks, older masks that I built. But that's essentially my next step. And then I haven't tried this mask on at all. I need to vacuum it out, clean it out really good, and then try it on and make any adjustments that I might need, whether it be, you know, carving out a little more around the eyes, certainly carving out this area here. There's a couple of those types of things that I need to do in my next step. And you can kind of mix those steps in between, but with the teeth in and the glue in there, it's definitely a time where you can try it on and start getting a sense for comfort and start making adjustments that are catered to your face, which is a big part of, you know, why you want to buy a mask kit, is because you want it to fit your face as opposed to someone else making it and sort of guessing what will fit your face. So yeah, that's where we're at now. And so far real happy with how it's turning out. Next video I'll hopefully have those little brackets in there, and hopefully I'll have the packaging so I can show you guys what little brackets I'm talking about. The other things that seems like I always forget to talk about is painting the teeth. I'm not going to go over painting the teeth in this series of videos. I don't profess to be a guru on painted teeth, but somebody else might, you know, have better information on that. But I will say that, like, when I like to paint the teeth is right about now, is when I get the glue that is, you know, the teeth are fully glued in, both top and bottom. And the reason why I like painting the teeth now is because since they're glued to another part of the mask, then I can hold that part of the mask and not have to worry about, you know, touching paint. So it's sort of like, it just makes it easier to paint them. And I'll detach the hinges basically, and then just paint the lower jaw separate than the upper. And I just think it makes it easier to hold on to them when I'm painting them. I don't know, like, I mean, I've just used acrylic paints in the past. I don't know what kinds of paints people like to use. There's a variety, I think, of paints that work and look good. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the painting the teeth part. I probably might not even paint these teeth on this mask, but we'll see. Okay, so these are the little hooks I use that I attach in the masks where I put those X's. What I do, these are just basically little wall hangers. So like they're made for, you know, hanging up a picture frame or something, or a picture. Basically just put a nail through. You can find them in any hardware store. And I basically just cut off the part that you nail there. Here's an example of what I do. I just cut that round part off, and then I just glue this in. And so I don't have one of the original packages, but I bought these on Amazon. You can buy, I think you can buy like 8 of them for a couple bucks or something. Not hard to find at all. I think these are like 5 to 10 pound weighted ones. You can use bigger, smaller. I felt like these were kind of like the right size for the mask. So they're small, but they're not so small that it's like difficult to get the rubber band on and off. That was kind of the trick I ran into. So yeah, those are those. I'm gonna get those installed and then I'll show you the end product. Pretty simple. I just basically put a dab of CA glue, same CA glue I've been using this whole time, zip kicker along with it. And I basically just put a drop or two of CA glue there in that spot and put the hooks in. Now notice they're going away from each other because you want to hook a rubber band in there. What I'm going to do is take a set of pliers and bend that hook in a little bit because you don't want to cut your face. And then I'll just hook a rubber band on it. You can hook any rubber band. I like to use these basically like for braces rubber bands that my daughter had a bunch left over after she got her braces off, so I just used those. But you can use any rubber band. If it's too big, just double it over, and you can kind of adjust the tension that you want in terms of the jaw reflex. And that's basically that. I haven't done the other side yet. You can see the X's still. X's obviously are covered up over here, but the X's help me kind of map out where I want each of those. There's been a couple times where if I didn't put the X's, then I had them kind of staggered a little bit and they just weren't lined up like you see here. So I'll go ahead and do the other side and then maybe do a video of just the end product with the rubber bands. I remember I was talking about those orthodontist rubber bands that my daughter had, and then I remembered that I had bought some new rubber bands that were black. I think I bought them on Amazon. Anyway, so I've got those installed. I've got all 4 of those little hooks installed, and I got some black rubber bands on there because I remember in my old one of my old masks, I felt like not having the black rubber band in there made it just more visible. I don't know if that will apply to this mask, but it doesn't hurt to just have some black rubber bands. So you can see now it's got probably just the right amount of bring it back up. And that's more or less the system for putting some tension on that, depending on the number of rubber bands and how tightly you wind them around those little hooks or whatever hooks you use, that can adjust your tension. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready. I'm gonna vacuum this out because I'm kind of at a point in this build where I really just need to put it on my face and kind of see, especially around the eyes, if that's gonna work for me, if it's gonna give me the vision that I'm looking for and comfort, especially comfort, because if it's not comfortable, you're not gonna wear it. And so hopefully the reason why you bought a kit is because you, well, hopefully, I mean, probably in your budget, but also just the idea of being able to customize it to your face as much as possible. So what I did was I've got my vacuum set up. I've got my vacuum set up, and I've got a horsehair brush. This isn't any special thing, a brush. The brush that came with my vacuum, I don't know, I misplaced the brush, so I just bought this one on Amazon. Anyway, I'm basically just going to go over this whole thing, try to get as much of the dust off as possible, and then I'm going to put it on my face. I'll make another video of it on my face, and I'll kind of hopefully be able to talk you through what I'm thinking as I try it on, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I've got the mask cleaned off as much as possible, got as much of the dust out of it as possible. You just don't want to put that thing on your face and have fiberglass dust all over your face. Again, you're putting your face into a mask that's not, completely there's no barriers between you and the fiberglass. So at some point, you're gonna probably get a little bit of fiberglass dust on you. I'm just trying to minimize that with the vacuuming. There's probably something else you can do too. You can put like a balaclava over and try to get an idea. So anyway, I'm gonna just try this on and talk you through what I'm thinking as I try it on. This is the first time that I've ever tried this mask on my own face. And this was a sculpt that I did separate. I didn't, cast it over my head or anything like that. So I'm really kind of up against the same exact challenge that you guys are gonna be up against when you're trying to fit this to your face. So here we go. All right, so my face went in really easy. You can see there's lots of room. I obviously can't even see that because I'm turned around. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I got lots of room around the eyes. I know that that's totally going to be enough room around the eyes. I don't need to shave around the eyes anymore at all. I could have maybe even cut less, but the silicone skin will cover that area. It'll be nice because I'll be able to press this mask back against my face, and the only thing that'll really press around my eyes is just the silicone. It is definitely cutting into me down here, and this line that I already drew is going to be probably get me to where exactly I need to be, but so I'll need to cut that out. I won't need to cut anything off the back because it was totally easy getting my head in here. It's pretty large. There's definitely some pressure here on my nose in this area, so I'm going to have some sort of a padding there. I don't feel any pressure around my eyes. I may start to feel some pressure around my eyes after I cut this, because I'll be able to get it closer to my face. There's no pressure around my cheeks. I've got at least, I don't know, looks like about a 1/4 inch around my cheeks and the rest of my face. My eyebrows are pushed up pretty good against this. Right now, the big limitation is this down here. So what I need to do is I need to cut this out to where it's comfortable, and then try it on again and see if I need to relieve pressure anywhere else and how I might be able to do that. So anyway, I'm just kind of trying to talk you through what I'm thinking as I'm trying this mask on. Hopefully that is helping you make your decisions for your mask. Okay, I went ahead and I cut out that area down there that I've been talking about cutting for a couple of videos now. I don't know if it's completely uniform. It looks like maybe just on the blind eye, I may have to take out just a little bit more here if I want to be more uniform, but ultimately this decision comes down to comfort. So right now I just want to put it on, see how it feels. You know, no one's ever really going to see this part of the mask. The only time you're going to really notice the uniformality, is that even a word, of this is probably right now. So I generally like things to try and be uniform, but in terms of Wookiee masks and how they work, there's not a whole lot of uniformity. It's just kind of like, you know, what looks good as the end result, and trying to get it as comfortable as possible as you're building it. Okay, so I'm going to try this on again, and I'm going to kind of go through that same process again. I'm kind of anticipating it being ready to go for next stages, so let's see. Okay, I can definitely get it much further on my face. It's definitely cupping my jaw. I definitely still don't have any pressure around my eyes. So I'm really happy with that. I could, I guess, take a little bit more off of this bottom. I wouldn't say it's digging into me, but it's definitely, you know, kind of pushing there. I'm in the middle of losing a bunch of weight, so I probably will just leave it the way it is. May take another 1/4 inch. I don't know, I'll decide on that after I do this video. But other than that, I mean, it's a great fit. I'm not even feeling as much pressure here anymore. Maybe I was pushing it too hard in the last video. I think I was, because I was trying to push it back, and then this was fighting me a little bit down here. But you can kind of see what I'm after here. I think I'm ready for next stages. I'm probably going to take just a slight more off of this bottom, and I expect it'll be ready to go at that point. And then I'm going to move on to the next phase of this build, which is I think probably felt. We're really reaching the final stages of the actual construction of this mask. Hair being a whole nother subject that I'll do a series of videos on. So that's it. I hope you really like my look right now. It's really awesome. I call this the skeleton Halloween look, I guess. I don't know. When I hold it against my face, obviously I need padding in there, but and as I do that, I'm really just feeling pressure here. So I think this is definitely gonna, the strap that we put on it will pull it tight to your eyes, and then I'll have padding somewhere in the nose that will really anchor it. Additionally, padding in the top of the head, which I'll discuss that later on too. Really liking this mask right now. Anyway, hope you're enjoying the build too. So I decided I'm just going to take just a little bit more off of it, which I talked about in the last video, and then I'm going to call it. It's going to be great after that, and I'll be ready for felt. All right, I just cut out that last line that I had showed you. You can kind of see the form that lower jaw is taking on, and that's really form fitted to my face and my fat neck. So just kind of doing that for comfort, but yours might take on a similar shape depending on how much it's cutting, you know, back into you there. But this is a super important thing in terms of getting this mask to be comfortable on your face. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it on. I'm kind of anticipating that I'm good to go on that. So let's see. Yes. Oh, so much more comfortable. Highly recommend that you get that part of it right. You can see when I tip my head back, it really is just working in line with the way my neck works. And again, I'm going to just need some padding here. So I'm gonna move on to the next phase. As I'm thinking about it, just sort of thinking out loud, I think that's gonna be a felt. And so what I'm gonna do is I'll make another video of felt, but you're gonna need a hot glue gun and some strips of felt. It's super simple to do this. You can kind of do your own thing when it comes to the felt, but I will do some videos on to show you what I do, and then you can kind of, you know, brainstorm your own ideas there. I'll probably do a pretty simple thing, and then you can expand on it if you want to. General idea is I want to do felt around all of the edges that I might grab as I pick this mask up, which includes all of this jaw edge here, everything back here, and around the sides. And basically it's just going to be a little strip of felt that's going to overlap on each side, outside and inside. And I'm just going to hot glue it in, and that is it. I'll do the same thing around the eyes, and I'll probably do the inside of the cheeks as well, or these cuts that I did on the cheeks. And I'll probably put some felt around the inside of the eyes too, but I'll talk you through that through a later video. All right, so I'm getting ready to do felt. And what I did was I mapped out where, so you guys could see very clearly where felt is going to go. Essentially, I just took a Sharpie pen and just basically colored in the areas that I'm going to be felting. So for starters, I'm going to show you the outside of it. I'm going to be all of these edge areas and stuff. I'm going to be putting a strip of felt over it. Got the strip of felt right here. It's maybe an inch, slightly more than an inch wide, and it's just longer. I just cut them to shape as I'm gluing them in. You can see the inside of the mask and that back edge. Basically that felt's going to go all the way everywhere that you see this black scribble in. Is where felt is going to be. So if I'm expecting my face to touch any of that area there, then I'm going to have felt over it, because I don't want my face touching fiberglass. I didn't felt all this area down here because I'm expecting to have a pad, some sort of a some kind of padding. And then the same thing for the top. I'm not felting the top of the mask. It just gets sweaty up there, so a bunch of felt is probably just gonna get all gross with all the sweat and everything. If you'll notice, I put some circles on top. A lot of masks are not full dome masks. This one is, for good reason, because this is supposed to anchor the top of your head. When you push down on the jaw, the top of your head is what keeps this mask in place. The top and the back here, because you don't want that mask sliding down. If it didn't have this, then the mask would be sliding on your face. A lot of people who have sort of the traditional half mask, they'll fit, you know, a baseball helmet or a bike helmet or something like that. This, you don't have to do it with this mask. It's already built into it, and that's exactly why I did it, because it was kind of a pain in the ass fitting the bike helmet. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make a mask that has this already built on it. It made the mother mold much more difficult, but that's on my end. So I'm happy to be able to do that for people and for myself as well. So that's where felt's gonna go. You can kind of see that, get a good look around. I'm gonna drill holes right here. I don't know if I even just mentioned that, but I'm gonna drill holes basically to vent. For those of you that have worn Wookiee masks, it gets hot in there, and have some vent holes that when I'm gluing hair on, I'll just carefully try to avoid getting glue and covering those up. You don't want to add something like that after you've already got a hair glued on. That's just a recipe for tangling a bunch of hair up and really messing up what you got going. The inside, I'm going to cut one piece of felt that kind of overlaps everything, and so the eyes will be covered for a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is, once I get that piece glued in on the inside, I'll come around to the front and I'll show a video hopefully of this. And at that point, the felt will be flush against this, and I'll just cut a hole in the center of it. And then what I'll do is I'll just overlap it. I'll just sort of overlap it around the front and glue it down where you see this black hanging. And that way, when I put my eyes up against this mask, it's just going to be up against a bunch of felt and the silicone, obviously. So I think that's it in terms of just like the rundown of what I'm doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to felt this mask. I will try to make video of the actual like gluing down, but I'm going to assume that a lot of you know how to use a hot glue gun and know how to glue down some felt, which is very basic. I'll try my best to do a little bit of a demo video for that. But again, one last look. This is what I got going here for this. Okay, you can kind of see where I'm going to be putting the felt. Okay, side angle, front. I did end up, just because I was getting crazy with the Sharpie, I ended up just sort of painting this middle portion here black. Because when the mask is over the top and you look in there, there's a little part of it that you can see. You could cut that out probably, but I like it because I like to glue the nose down to it. Occasionally I'll grab the mask from the nostrils, and so I like that being there as a support. Most of the time I just grab it through the eyes when I'm picking it up, just like that. Or you certainly could grab it from the side as well. Okay. Okay, so I've got a piece of felt here that is cut somehow exactly the length that I need it for this back portion, this back edge. So what I'm doing is, hopefully you guys can see that, is I'm just going to start it here. I'll glue a line there, and then I'll glue that down, and then I'm assuming that that's glued down. I'll just kind of keep going around this edge, just a little bit at a time. Oh, it looks like I'll have a little bit to cut off, but I'm going to glue it to about there, and then I'll go and I'll glue the inside. So I'm just going to start off doing that. I'll give you a quick demo here and show you how I get started with it. So I just do a little quick line of glue. I already got my glue gun all heated up. I go about an inch, inch and a half, maybe 2 inches at the most. And then I just squish it down onto it. And boy, does it stay good. I don't know, something about that hot glue just adheres to that, fiberglass really well. So I'm gonna have to get some more glue here in a second, but I'll do one more. I'm hoping that you guys can see that, because I'm not really looking at the camera. Okay, and then I'll glue down a little more. Just trying to do a little bit of time, because the glue sets up so fast that if I go much further, then it starts setting up on me, and then I got a bunch of glue that is already dried up. So you get the idea there. I'm just going to go all the way, work my way around. I'll cut off that, I don't know, there's maybe half an inch left there. And then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll just fold it over and glue the inside. When I do the inside of this piece, I'll start from the middle and work my way out more than likely. That seems to work better so I don't have like excess. But anyway, hopefully I think you get the idea there. I'm going to do the same thing for these other edges, and then I'll come back and I'll try to make another video to show how I do those eyes, because they're a little bit different than how I do everything else. Okay, so you can see I got that back edge done. So anytime I go to grab that, it's not going to cut me or give me a fiberglass burr or something like that. So anyway, you can see, starts making it look a lot cleaner too. Anyway, now I'm going to do the same thing around this face area here, and then I'll come back in and do the cheeks and then the inside and the eyes. Okay, so I've got all of that outside edge done now, all of that outside edge felted. What I'm going to do the cheeks is I'm going to take these cotter pins out, take these rubber bands out, and take the jaw off. It'll make it so that I have easier access to do essentially the same thing that I did on this outside edge, but on these inner cheek areas. And then it'll also make it easier access to get into the face when I do that after the cheeks. And then afterwards, I probably will cut or drill these holes out. When I do that, I might have my vacuum running when I do it, because you don't want to get fiberglass dust in your felt. It just doesn't want to come out. So maybe if you're going to drill some vent holes, then probably do it before you felt. I probably should have done that, but it'll be all right. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut a rectangular piece of felt, and I basically just sat it inside of the mask, and then I pushed it down flat against the eyes, and then I kind of just felt my way around with the Sharpie and tried to kind of feel whereabouts I was going to want to lay that felt down and in terms of the shape. Now, you can see on this pattern, there's some wonky lines. You know, I drew it like this, and then I wanted it to be more uniform. So this line right here is, you know, disregard that. And then this line here was a little short, so I lifted it up. So that's what those are. But I'm going to cut out that pattern, and then I'm going to set it in there and see how it looks. If it looks good and it's covering all the areas that I want it to cover, then I'll glue it in. I will start by gluing it in close to the eyes, and then I'll work my way out to that pattern. So an example of that was, assuming that shape is what I want, I'll start by gluing it around the eye, get it secure, then I'll glue the other eye, and then I'll kind of just work my way out as I kind of go around and glue this down the inside. Now, as I do this, I'm basically going to be covering up this eye hole, and then I'll come in later and I'll cut a hole here, and then I'll fold over and I'll glue here and glue it down. That way I can have my eyes back, the eye holes back. Anyway, hopefully that's making sense. I will have more videos to hopefully give you the visuals on it. Okay, so I've got that pattern cut out, and I'm liking its uniform. You'll notice right off the bat that it's not covering up all of the scribbled area that I outlined prior. And it really doesn't need to be. I got a little bit overzealous with my pattern when I was sketching it out. My face isn't going to be touching this area down here, so it doesn't need to do it. And the other thing, too, that I haven't mentioned is that I want to leave a good solid 1 to 1.5 inches of space in this area right here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue down a belt strap that will go around the head and allow you to tighten this down and pull it tight to your eyes. And so I want to glue that directly to the fiberglass. I don't want to be gluing that down to felt. If for some reason I had put felt down here, what I'd have to do is kind of shave off some of the felt to make space for the belt that goes on there. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, I'll show you one of the Chewy underskulls that I've got here, and you can see the belts glued down to that area. It's the same general concept there in terms of the where the felt is. This one has a lip mechanism in it, so it's a little bit less felt up in the middle. But anyway, that's the general idea. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start gluing this down, starting around the eyes and the inside. Probably not going to be able to show that on the video, but what I'm going to do is just kind of lift up, put a little glue there, and then push it down. Do that all the way around the eye, and get all of the felt nice and glued down. And then what I'll be left with is a nice, tight, firm felt, and I'll be looking at something like this, at which point I'll cut a hole in the middle of it, sort of a oval shape, you know, eye shaped. I'll just match the shape of the eye hole, and then I'll leave myself some felt to be able to fold over and glue into this space. I don't want to glue a lot of felt down here because I'm going to need to be gluing the skin down on this. So I'll cover that in the next video when I do that. But I'm going to cut a fairly decent size oval out of this after I get the inside glued in. All right, so I've got that inside, I guess you could call it a sleep mask. I got that all glued in. You can see it's got a good amount of tension just on that felt that's there on the eyes. I'm gonna go ahead and see if these scissors might not be sharp enough. What I do is I just careful not to cut myself, but I'll just cut a hole in the middle. If you guys can see that. And I'm just gonna cut, I'm gonna leave about, I don't know what that is, maybe 1/4 inch or so of felt just on the inside of that edge. I'll show you guys here in a second. I'm just kind of working my way around this eye hole. I just want to have enough to kind of lip over so that I can glue it on the other side, but I don't want it to and it doesn't need to be particularly uniform. It's going to get all covered up, but essentially that's what I'm going to do on both eyes. What I like to do, just to make this so that is easier to glue down is I like to cut about 4 little lines in it just to make it easier to glue down. That way I can put a line of glue here and then I can fold it over and it'll be like that all the way around. Hopefully you guys could see it as I was doing that. But anyway, I'll do that. I got 4 little flaps here that I gotta just glue through there. And then, let's see, I might be able to do one. I usually burn myself when I'm doing this part because there's not very much felt, and so that's an example of that. Top one. Let's do a side one. I'm not using as much glue here just because there's not as much felt to go, and I'm attempting not to burn myself. So there's that one. Okay, and I'm kind of grabbing it from the inside and just pushing it through, pulling away the extra hot glue. Almost done with that one eye there. Just a little bit of glue here. Amazingly, you guys might be able to actually see that. Okay, and that's pretty good. Got a little bit of excess glue that I can just rip off of there. If for some reason you have to re-glue it or whatever, then no big deal, just add more glue. But that's essentially what you're looking at. Now, that's never going to be visible because the silicone will cover it up with the face scan, but you can see how clean it looks on the inside. So you're, putting your face into something that is going to be much more comfortable than if you're just putting it on fiberglass. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other eye, and then felting is just about done, I think. So we'll go on to the next step. All right, so I've got it all glued down on the inside. It's looking pretty good. Not a completely straight line across the top, no big deal. If you wanted to go up further with the felt, you certainly could. I usually like to have a pad that kind of loops in here about like so. And we'll probably go over that later. Anyway, you can see the front view here. Obviously that all gets covered up by silicone. And then you can get the full view of the full felt job, if you will. But essentially that's it. So we're kind of dealing with comfort stuff right now. You see the inside here. If you wanted to felt this bottom area, you could. I like to put a pad there. So again, it's the same thing. Pad in the bottom, pad in the top. So I usually don't felt in there. It's the pad that it keeps my face away from the fiberglass. Go ahead and put these rubber bands back in. And put the cotter pins back in my hinges. And we are getting very close to being done with this kit construction. Obviously, your kit will have a painted nose already. The silicone skin will be painted. And then you hopefully will have painted your teeth by now. Although if you haven't, you still can paint your teeth right now. All you do is you just take out the rubber bands, undo whatever hinge system you have, and then it gives you have an awesome thing to grasp onto without having to actually hold the teeth to paint them. So you just want to make sure you paint the teeth before you put the silicone skin on. It's possible to paint them after the silicone skin too, but it's just much more of a hassle. The next stage of this is going to be gluing down the silicone mask, and that will really be the last step in this process. I'm going to be gluing down a mask that does not have a nose and eyes painted. Your mask, when it comes to you, will have a painted nose, painted with silicone airbrush. There's no way that I would have you guys do that because it's a whole nother beast in and of itself. But your eyes will be blackened with some silicone paint, and your nose will be as well. So this video, obviously I didn't have that done in my demo Tarfful kit. So don't worry if you're watching this video and waiting on your mask to show up, your nose and eyes will be painted. And the last step really in the kit construction, I guess there's two things. We got to glue the face on, and then what we got to do is glue in a strap. And it's just a simple cotton belt strap that I'll show you in a later video. Anyway, I think 2 steps left, and then we'll be done with the Tarfful kit construction. Thought I'd just show a quick video of trying the mask on now that I have all the felt done. Just, I guess, for shits and giggles. Anyway, still got a great fit, much more comfortable around the eyes. Right now my nose and mouth are really actuating this, but when I get pads in the top of the mask, I've got maybe, I don't know, an inch or two or something of pad, some space of padding that I got to put in the top, and then it will take off pressure off my nose. So far, very pleased, very happy with the shape of this mask and the ability to customize it to my face. So that's what it looks like without the face skin on. I'm gonna put a strap in. I'll make a video of that, and I'm going to glue the face skin on, and I'll make a video of that as well. Because there are some areas where you glue and other areas where you don't, and I'll explain why in those videos. All right, next step, I'm gonna glue in the strap. I decided I'm gonna do that before I glue the face skin on. Just a simple cotton belt with the 2 D-rings on it. I found them on Amazon. I found them at Goodwill for like $1, you know, just about anywhere. Like, these things are just like the standard basic cotton belt that you can buy with the 2 D-rings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off about, I want it to fit around my head, so I'm going to put the mask on, and I'm going to get a sense for you know, how much I need on one end, and then how much of its tail I need on the other. I don't want a huge long belt hanging down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to use a flame to just seal that in so it doesn't start fraying over time. I probably won't make a video of that. Probably just kind of talk through it, show you the belt. I'm going to use E6000 is the glue I'm going to use, and it's, where is my E6000? Well, somewhere I have some E6000. I don't know where it is right now, but I will find it. E6000 is a pretty common glue, sold just about everywhere. That's the glue I use to glue it in. I'll just do like a little zigzag, and then I basically just push it in to the glue, and then I'll put a clamp on it. Clamp like so. I might put 2 clamps on it. I'll show you an after video or after picture of when I have it all glued in. Fire. Anyway, so I've cut about 6 or 7 inches of this belt off on the D-ring side. Just kind of melt the end of it. So I've got that side, I'll glue in one, and then I'll go ahead and burn the other side. And the other side, I've just basically cut off double of what the D-ring side was. So if you're wondering how long it should be, that's usually what I go with. Essentially, I like the D-rings to sit right in the middle of the back of my head as I have the mask on. And so then the other end is, it had this little metal thing on the end. So what I did was I cut it so that I could use that on the end of my tail. But I am going to glue this in right about there, maybe a little lower than that, about right there, right below this edge right here. I'm going to glue it in right there. And actually, I may cut away a little bit of this felt just so I can glue down more of this. I'd like to glue down about 1.5 inches of this belt, so it looks like I'm going to need to cut away a little bit of that, which is fine, not hard to do. And then on the other side, I'll glue in my D-ring. I don't know if it matters what side the D-ring is on. On this side, I have a little more fiberglass showing, so I won't have to cut any away. But I'm going to glue that down right about, let's see if I can give you a better look there. I'm going to glue it down right in that spot right there, and I'll put a clamp on it. I'll probably let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow I will glue down the silicone mask, and then I'll be done with the kit. All right, so I went ahead and glued in the D-ring side of that strap. I've got 2 clamps on it. I got a short clamp that's kind of clamped on the near side of the thing. It is glued down with E6000, which I'm almost running out of. For those of you that don't know what E6000 is, here's a tube of it. E6000. it doesn't matter the color. I think this was clear, and I just did like a little zigzag pattern. E6000, I usually let it sit overnight. It takes a while to set up, but it's super strong. So I've just got that thing clamped down. So holding sign. I'm going to glue on the other side, and I'll have clamps sitting on this overnight, and it'll be totally fine in the morning. So I'm going to go ahead and glue on the other side, and then we'll be on to our last step, which is gluing on the silicone face skin. All right, and I've got the other side clamped in. You can see it right here. I couldn't find my other big giant clamp, so it's not quite reaching as far. If you have a bigger clamp, it's nice to have something that can hold down this entire belt, but I think it'll be all right. It's pretty good. Anyway, so it's all clamped in. I'll let that dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will glue on the face skin, and then we'll be done with the kit construction, as far as I can think of anyway, aside from, I guess, drilling some holes. And this is kind of where we're at right now. I did have, one thing I wanted to mention is I did have to peel away maybe a 1/4 inch of the felt, just to make it so that there was more surface of that belt to glue in. I haven't had any problems with the E6000 and the belts holding out, but I have to glue down a good 1.5 inches of that belt. So yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, so I am gonna open the jaw a little bit so you can hear me better. So I came down this morning in the shop, and I've got the clamps taken off of where I had glued in the strap, and I've got it tried on, and I've got the strap, it's all good to go and everything. I think if I'm going to pull it off though, and I'm going to lower it, it's a little bit high, and right now it's pulling the top of the mask a little bit more, and I want it to really pull back at the eyes. So I kind of should have known better. I've done this so many times, but I guess I got in a hurry or whatever. Anyway, it's not hard to just rip off where the E6000 is and just re-glue it. So I'll probably do that tonight. It still works the way it is. I'm just wanting it to pull more like my face closer, and not so much right now. It's kind of just pulling up here, and it's wanting to pull the mouth away from me. It still works. I'm going to show you what I've got going on there. Oh, and then also just it's wanting to slide up and off of my head, so I just need to basically lower the strap. The other thing too is, I guess I should have made it a little longer. Maybe I have a fatter head than what I thought, but it still works. But I just was only getting about that much tail when I strapped it up and tightened it down. I think I want a little bit more of a tail than that, just so it's like easier to get on. But again, I would just I'm just going to lower the strap about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. I got it a little lower on one side than I did the other, and I don't know why I did that, but anyway, that's a really easy fix. The other thing too is I wanted to show you, I have a pretty large head, so you might need more padding than this, but I essentially just put in this, this is just a EVA foam, and it's just been curved with some heat into that, and you can just see it just slides right in. And for me, if I do that pad there and a similar pad in the bottom that's just sort of curved to the shape of this bottom jaw, then that's probably all the padding I'm going to need in this mask, aside from something for my nose, just to keep that from there's a lot of different ways that people pad these masks. The biggest thing is put it on, feel where there's pressure, and put padding there. The less padding you can get away with and still be comfortable, the better, because you'll be able to get your eyes closer to the actual front of the mask. But all in all, that's it. I mean, the mask is essentially done, aside from needing to glue on the skin. I'm gonna glue on some skin here, but I'm probably gonna have to take it off because I haven't painted the teeth yet. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm gonna mark where I'm gonna glue, and then I'll probably just lay the mask over it to give you guys a sense of where it glues down, and then I'll do probably like one little example of gluing it down. But I want to be able to take the mask off of this so that I can get in and paint the teeth. Hopefully you guys have already done that. You definitely want to paint the teeth before you glue the silicone face skin on. But that is the last main step in completing the kit construction. And so after you're done with that, you're basically moving on to hair work, which is a whole nother deal. And I'll do hopefully another set of videos explaining how I do that. All right, so I went ahead and I ripped the strap out of the back. Kind of frustrated that I made that mistake, but easy fix. So I'll re-glue that a little bit lower so that I get the right snug fit from the mask. So I'll do that tonight. Anyway, now we're talking about where to glue down the silicone mask. So first and foremost, before I forget to mention it, the mask that you're gonna get has had baby powder thrown all over it, because when I pull it out of the mold, it's still a little bit tacky, and it bugs me when I'm grabbing a bunch of wet, tacky silicone. It's gross. So I pour a bunch of baby powder over it to kind of dry it out and stuff. So go and wash it. I would just use like normal dish soap, wash it and dry it thoroughly. Make sure that it's completely dry before you try to glue it on. And just make sure that it's clean. Use a dish soap that's like a, degreaser, like palm olive or any of those should work fine. Just your typical dish soap. But all of them are sitting here, and they'll have some baby powder on them, because I'm trying to, as they finish curing, the baby powder kind of keeps them from all sticking together and everything. And anyway, it's just kind of annoying. So wash it thoroughly. Very important. Don't try to glue it on when it has other stuff on top of it. It probably won't adhere. So again, and then the other product, you're gonna be using Silpoxy. Don't use another product. You gotta find some Silpoxy. I buy this on Amazon. This is a 3-ounce tube. I think it's about 35 bucks. This is expensive glue. It goes a long way, and it smells like vinegar. So my daughter's always super annoyed by the smell in the garage when I'm gluing stuff down. So again, Silpoxy, I think it's the only product that I have been able to find that actually works to glue down these masks. Your mask is made of EcoFlex by a company called Smooth On. This is Silpoxy. I don't work for Smooth On, but I love their stuff. It's amazing. Used by tons of people worldwide. If you know something else that works, that can work with Smooth On's silicone and adhere it fine, then mention it, please. It'd be cool to see what else is out there. So where do we glue down the mask? Okay, it's important to know that, let's see if I can grab the mask that I'm actually using for this. So when you glue down Silpoxy, this mask, it really gets pretty rigid, and you'll lose some reflexivity to the silicone. And so what you want to do is you want to be careful where you glue it down so that you don't lose all the reflexivity, especially around the jaw, because you want to be able to open the jaw and have this silicone be loose enough to where you're not only using the reflexivity of a thin area here around the jaw. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue it down in certain areas and not in other areas to try and get more reflexivity out of the silicone mask. If you're constantly putting that tension on a very thin area of the mask, then what you do is you run the risk of tearing the mouth piece right there. So what I've done is I've outlined the areas where I glue down the mask in just kind of scribbled with a black Sharpie. So I'm going to just put a thin layer of glue around these areas here, over the nose, down this bridge area. If you're not doing a lip mechanism, which I think they're kind of overrated, but they're cool if you can get them right, or if you have an idea about one. I'll glue down the upper lip here if I don't have lip mechanism stuff sitting there. This mask is set up if you want to do a lip mechanism. It's set up for a couple of different kinds I'm sure you could make work, but there is a platform on top of the teeth to set some pulley or some paddles or whatever you have working. And then here's the bottom. That's what I glue there. Notice how I've glued that though. It's kind of a triangular shape here, and then I glue up that lip there on the bottom. So I'm gonna give you a good look of where I put glue on this. Notice I'm not putting glue on this fairly large area here above the cheek and below the cheek. And the reason is because when the jaw actuates, I don't want only this area of silicone pulling. And if I glue all this down, then it will pull only this area here in the middle. I want it to use the reflexivity of this entire space of silicone. And that'll take some of that pressure off of that area that's right there, so that that's not getting all of the actuation, and we're not having to use only the reflexivity of that space of silicone. So I hope that makes sense. Where I have the black, again, just for like the 5th time now, where I have black scribbles is where I glue down, okay? And what I do is I just grab a rubber glove. Okay, I put it on. I'll put some silicone in that area, and then I just use my glove to just smear it around to give myself about a, I don't know, just a really thin, like less than 1 millimeter of glue there. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll set it down like this and let that glue dry. Now epoxy glue dries pretty fast. You're looking at probably 15-20 minutes depending on the temperature of where you're at, for that stuff to cure and connect your fiberglass to your silicone. So yeah, I'll do a quick video of, I'm only gonna glue the top half, everything above on the upper skull to mine, because I wanna be able to flip it up so that I can still paint the teeth. But you'll definitely get the idea of what I do for the glue process. Okay, so I got my tube of sil epoxy, got my mask. Just gonna go ahead and put some glue down. Of course, I gotta break the seal on it. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna put some glue down. I'm just putting a line of glue. And I'm just gonna start off by just gluing the forehead, and then I'll go from there. But you can kind of see what I've got going there. Okay, I'm gonna cap the sil epoxy. This is really important because it dries quick. You don't wanna waste it, it's expensive glue. So I'm gonna cap it. I'm not just gonna set it down and let it wait. Okay, then I'm gonna come back to my mask. Okay, and I'm just gonna smear in those areas. Just gonna smear in those areas where I have that black. I don't think you even need to outline anything. I use too much of this too, so probably way too much actually. Oh, it smells like vinegar. So what I use there is enough to get all the way down around the eyes and everything. If you got any big lumpy spots or whatever, I'm just going around the eyes. I want to get that mask on here pretty quick because it starts setting up fairly quickly. Trying to keep it as close to the eyes as I can. Okay, so got that on there. I'm gonna wipe my finger off so that I'm not grabbing a bunch of stuff with sil epoxy fingers. Okay. And I've got my mask on here. I'm kind of holding it upside down just to make sure that it's getting on there where I want it to get on there. This particular mask came up a little bit short. Some of the other masks that I got, they go back a little further. You can cut them if you want. It's okay if it covers this. All of this is going to be covered in hair anyway, so it's really not a super big deal. if it's a little short or if it's going over the edge. It doesn't really matter either. I usually like to just kind of cut this edge level down here. Obviously I've got some hinge showing, not worried, it'll get covered up with hair anyway, so not an issue. So right now I'm just kind of going through, making sure that this thing is pressed down where it's supposed to be pressed down. And obviously I still have to paint this one too, which I mentioned. Take this. Take my glove off here. But anyway, I got it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on something so that it's sitting about like this, because I want gravity to just kind of keep this in place while that glue is curing. This is just really easy process, but if you haven't used silk epoxy before, I know it's nice to get some reassurance on what you're doing. Again, I'm just making sure that the mask is on here the way it's supposed to be on. So I'll kind of check it for a few minutes as that glue is curing, just making sure that it's going to be glued down. In the event that it's out of place or something, or that maybe you set it the wrong way and you come back to it and it's kind of glued and it's crooked or something like that, you can go in and just use a knife and just kind of peel and cut and take it off. You just want to avoid that because it's just kind of a pain, kind of like putting the strap on the wrong way and then having to come back to it. This area under the chin that I cut, you can kind of see how it's folding over. I will come in and I'll shape this silicone to the actual underskull. You can kind of see, well, I showed you that cut before. Anyway, so I'm going to let this sit for about 15 minutes and then I'll come back to it. There's nothing on my lower jaw is glued down yet, so I'm just dealing with this upper area, trying to get it glued down. And then I will come back and do another video, hopefully, of the next step. Almost. Okay, so I've got it. Stop the camera from shaking here. So I've got it sitting like this. I have a couple of these set up just for working on these masks. It's essentially a piece of particle board, heavy particle board with a dowel sticking up through it and one of these foam heads. They seem to work really well. A lot of times when I don't have the mask glued on or I'm trying to glue it on, I just kind of set it like this and kind of tilt it back. And it's like the perfect angle for gravity to kind of keep that mask sitting where it's supposed to sit while it's curing. The glue is almost cured. It's been maybe 10 minutes. But just to be safe with it, I like leaving it like that for, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, just to make sure. And then I'll come back and check and make sure that it's all glued on the same thing. I still have to paint the nose on this one and paint the eyes, but so far it's looking good. And again, I just to repeat, I didn't glue down anything on my lower jaw yet. So if I were to put this on my head when it is cured, that lower skin's going to be wanting to fall off of that lower jaw, just simply because it's not glued down to that. I'm not going to glue it down to that yet because I still have to kind of flip. I'm going to flip the mask up over this way so that I can still get to the teeth. And I didn't glue down that upper lip either because it's just going to be in the way if I try to glue the teeth. It's a little bit unconventional. I don't recommend doing it that way. I'm just doing it this way so that I can get this video done for those of you that are wanting to get started on this kit. So keep those things in mind as you do it. Paint the teeth first. Okay, so I've got the face skin, at least that top portion, glued on. You can see that this bottom portion is really loose. Again, I made it so that I could flip it back up and paint the teeth. You'll want to paint your teeth beforehand. I've said that several times, hoping that people pick that up. Just go ahead and try it on, basically. And I could spend some time cleaning up and straightening this edge. It'll be a lot easier on you because that'll already be done, and the eye will already be painted. Again, I don't have the strap on right now, but you can kind of see what you're looking at. I'll show you the inside here in a second. But and then obviously that bottom part's not glued down, so the skin's kind of not working in tandem with the jaw yet, but of course it will when it gets glued down. So that's basically it. I'll just show you a picture of the inside of this. You can see how the silicone is what's going to be hopefully touching your face, not the fiberglass. In some cases, not even the felt, depending on how close you can get it to your face. I'll need to put some sort of padding right here, just because I mean that's usually the case with these masks, or maybe always the case. And then that pad I have on the inside and the pad in the chin will be about all I'll have. But I still need to do the strap because I need to relocate that. But anyway, that's it for the construction build. Aside from those little things I need to do, I'll probably make a video just with a finished product, at least with that strap in, and then this video will be a wrap. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me better with the mouth open a little bit. So I got the face skin glued on. I did actually end up putting just a little bit of glue down there just so that I could have a video where I'm showing the face skin being secured down, both top and bottom. Not that it matters to you, but when I go to paint the teeth, what I'll do is I'll just go in and I'll just use a little X-Acto knife to just peel this back. It's only glued just in this little area. But anyway, this is the completed kit construction. And I need to put a little pad in the nose just because it's giving me some pressure there. But otherwise, it's really comfortable. I could probably put a little more pads up in the top too. There's a little bit more space. I might use 2 of those pads like I showed, those curved pads. But really happy with it. I did move the strap down. See if I can turn it on so you can see that. It's sitting just above my ears, perfect spot. And then just keep in mind that your nose will be black, your eyes will be painted black like the chewing mask that I showed in one of the previous videos. And that is it. I'll start working on a hair video at some point here, so that those of you that get done with this portion can start on hair work. I suspect many of you already know all that stuff, but just kind of wanted to offer all this stuff. If you've made it all the way, this video is well over 2 hours. If you've made it this far in the video, then congratulations. It's been a long video. I've had fun putting it together. So thank you for tuning in. If you have questions or comments or need further clarification on anything, then expect that you'll communicate those to me, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. My hope is that I'll make this video available to people who buy the kit, and I'll probably set up some kind of a Facebook page or something like that for people that are setting it up, and I'm going to likely invite in a few other people that are kit makers, just so they can so that everybody can kind of chime in, and if there's other little things you can do to make this experience of building this better for you, then I'm all for it. I'm really proud of this kit. So Tarfful, this is the Tarfful, my version 2 Tarfful. I haven't seen any need to do another version, so I think this will be it. I'm really extremely happy with how this has turned out. That's how the inside of it looks. And this video is a wrap. Thank you, everybody.